name's Jeni Baker, and I'm a quilter and designer for Art Gallery Fabrics. And today I'm going to talk to you about log cabin blocks. So even if you've not done hardly any quilting, log cabin quilt blocks are one of the very basic blocks that you're going to start with. So here we have a couple of examples of some log cabin blocks, this being probably the most basic. So we have a center square in a log cabin, and then logs that go all the way around it to build it out. So for this one in particular, we've got a central square that is the same size as all of our logs. So we're talking about width here. So this is just a little mini quilt that's just 4 blocks, but you can already see how the logs start to interact with one another and kind of create a little bit of a secondary pattern. And that is going to happen again on this little mini quilt here. We've got 4 large blocks that are made out of 4 individual log cabin blocks. And in this case, we've got our neutral logs and our print fabrics that are forming this little secondary pattern. So because we've been careful about where we've placed those, we've got this really cool plus formation. And here is another example. We've got a larger center square, and then our logs are a little bit skinnier. So it just gives it a little bit of a different look, and you can really do tons of things with this technique. So what I'm going to be showing you today is how to make these cute little log cabin coasters. So we've just got one central square, and we're going to build 1 round of logs around it. So let's go ahead and get started. So I already have my pieces cut here, and I'm using 1.5-inch strips, and all of these measurements will be available on the website for you. So what we're going to do, we're going to start building this in a clockwise direction. Now you could certainly go in a counterclockwise direction if you wanted, but you just want to be consistent. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to take this first little skinny log and attach it to our center square. And I have the 1/4-inch foot ready to go on this machine, because that is what we always want in quilting, is that nice 1/4-inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to sew right down this edge. And I like to press between each step because it's just going to give us a nice crisp block. And I am pressing my seams away from the center block. So they're going to be towards our log. So I'll show you what that looks like when we flip this over. So rather than going towards this square, we're going towards that little log. So let's give that guy one more press. So we've got our first log attached to our square, and we're ready to add our next one. So I'm going to use this little turquoise guy here. And you could certainly pin this if you wanted. Since it is such short seams, I am not pinning, but if it makes you more comfortable, feel free to go ahead and do that. So again, I'm just using that nice edge on my 1/4-inch foot to get a perfect seam there. And if you don't have a 1/4-inch foot for your machine, a lot of times there will be a piecing setting, and you can just use that, or the markings that are right on the machine bed. So again, I'm pressing this seam away from the center. Isn't this little iron cute? It's great for small projects like that. So again, we've got our seam going away from that center block. So we're just going to keep building this. And if you can imagine, if we were doing a larger block, all of this would be the same. We would just keep going around and around until we've got the size that we want. You could do a whole quilt that's just one giant log cabin block. I think that'd be really cool. All right. Pull this guy out and press that seam. If you were doing this while you were traveling, you could certainly finger press these seams because they are so little, but I still like to pull out the iron when I'm doing mine. So let's put this final log on here, get it lined up. and finish up our coaster top. So we are now done with our coaster top. These come together really quick, and it'd be really easy to do these assembly line and do a whole set, because obviously one coaster isn't going to do you. So now we have our finished log cabin block. So let's go ahead and put this together into our coaster. I've already got some batting cut to the same size as my coaster top and some backing fabric. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to lay my backing fabric right sides up. Then I'm going to put my coaster top right sides down and get all those layers lined up nicely. And then I'm going to put my batting down. I like to have my batting on top when I do this. I find that it doesn't shift as much underneath the machine as I'm feeding it through for whatever reason. So let's get this pinned in place. And I'll get us started on this one, and so you can see how I pivot, but we won't go all the way around. All right, I still have that 1/4 inch foot on there, and rather than start on one of the corners, I'm gonna start maybe 1 inch from the corner so that I can leave myself a space to turn it when I'm done. So I've put my needle down, and I'm gonna sew down to about a 1/4 inch before the corner, and then I have my needle down, I'm gonna lift up my presser foot and just pivot that, and then I can continue on down the side of the coaster and go all the way around. So I am going to pull this out. I have one ready to turn. So I've sewn all the way around. I'm just gonna stick my finger in here. And depending on how big of an opening you left, this will be, more difficult than others. I was pretty good. I left myself a decent size opening here, but every once in a while you realize you haven't left yourself enough room. So get that turned out. And then I like to just use a clean chopstick to poke out my corners, but you could use a dull pencil, a knitting needle. I think there are specific turning tools out there too, but a chopstick has worked just fine for me. So once we get that all nice and turned, we'll give it a quick press. I didn't do too good of a job on that one, so I'm going to pull one from over here. Isn't that magic? All right, so now I am going to change to a regular foot to finish this up with just a little bit of top stitching. So I am going to move my needle all the way over so that I can just use the edge of this presser foot as a guide. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna put my needle down, and I'm gonna go ahead and start stitching. So I'm just gonna eyeball how close I need to be. That looks about right. So, and another thing that you can do, and I've done on a few of these coasters over here, is you can add any kind of decorative stitching to the middle of that coaster that you'd like. You could certainly leave it plain. There would be nothing wrong with that, but it's a great opportunity to use some decorative stitches, some quilting stitches or patterns. It's just a really great opportunity to have a little bit of fun. So, all right. So let's pull this guy out, and I will show you what our finished coasters are gonna look like. So we top stitched around all 4 sides, and then on a few of these I've added a little bit of decorative stitching. Were all done just with the regular machine foot. I hope you enjoyed making a set of log cabin coasters, and they make great gifts, so make some for all your friends.